Already, give us just a moment. Zoom takes a few minutes to load in all of the folks. So welcome and thank you for being here, and thank you for your patience as we load everyone in. I'm told we have 260 RSVPs, so now we get the adventure to watch everyone load into the participant list and see where we're at. So far, we're at about 80. So we're either of RSVPs with no shows, or we'll have another couple minutes to load everyone into the call. All right, it looks like we're getting to a place of some stability in the attendees showing up. So we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone. My name is Jillian Hayes. I'm the Dean of the Grad Division, and I'm very happy to host this wonderful panel of folks and town hall today for our incoming students. Hopefully we can answer lots of questions for you, and if not, we can at least take down your question and find you the answers where we should. And we have a wonderful group of panelists with us today, and they'll introduce themselves in just a moment. But I wanted to start with just a few things that have come up a lot in the questions, as well as some sort of ground rules for how we do things in these town halls if you haven't been here before. So first of all, a big thanks to all of you who sent questions ahead of time. That allowed us to prepare a few remarks and answer some questions that many of you have. The other is, I will say, as I say to students when I'm teaching, if you think that you have a question but you're not sure, the chances are someone else has that same question. So please do go ahead and ask us, and we'll do our best to answer it. If you haven't done one of these Zoom town halls before, the way that you ask a question is through the Q&A box that's sort of on the bottom middle area of your screen. And then we'll either be able to answer that. We may answer it in text while we're talking, or we may answer it live, depending. So please do get your questions in there. We'll do a very quick few minutes with each of the panelists on some background and answers, as I said, to the questions you sent in earlier, and then we'll move to a pure Q&A format. So the first thing I want to say is, on behalf of all of the UCI graduate programs, to our incoming students on this call, we are so glad that you chose to study with us here at UCI, despite 2020 being the weirdest year I've ever been alive, and most painful in many ways for many of us. So taking that leap into graduate school during this time is major, and we really respect you for it, and we're so glad that you've chosen us, and congratulations, because we also had a record number of applicants this year, and was a very competitive pool, so wonderful there. Probably by now, hopefully you know that campus is officially hybrid for the fall. So we will be offering some in-person courses, or courses that have in-person elements to them. So for example, maybe you don't come in for a traditional lecture, but you might have lectures online and small group discussions that might be in person, or you might have lab work in person, but the majority of our courses will be online, or at least majority online. We still hope that you will come to campus and to the Irvine area, especially for those of you who are interested in research or networking opportunities, or getting to know the area in other ways, and we look forward to welcoming you. You'll hear in a few minutes some of the ways in which we've planned that out to make that as doable as possible. I also just want to say UCI is heads and shoulders above the field in terms of this kind of online learning. So for one thing, our Vice Provost for Teaching and Learning, Michael Denon, this was one of his passions as a faculty member on our faculty senate, and then something that he's really implemented as Vice Provost for Teaching and Learning is a focus on very high quality online education and remote learning opportunities. Spring did not go the way that any of us would have liked. Turning a class from in-person to remote overnight is not something that's doable pretty much anywhere for anyone. But we have invested heavily this summer into revamping those courses that will be offered online in the fall, and I'm really confident that you can have a high quality experience. I personally have taught online for the last 4 years and find it to be really wonderful. It's actually more work and more intense for me than teaching in person, but it can be a really great experience when done in a high quality way. The second thing that's come up a lot in our office is the notion of what's going to happen to my financial aid or financial offers for graduate fellowships for those of you who have fellowships and things like that. Those of you who are looking at loans or other kinds of mechanisms, please know the financial aid office is reworking all of that as quickly as they can in light of COVID and other challenges that you might be having. And if you're not coming to campus, they have to recalculate based on different kinds of living experiences and so on. But they are working through that backlog as quickly as they can. If you have fellowships and funding offers, if you're a PhD student, for example, campus will honor those, even if you are remote. So please have confidence and faith in that we will make that work. And then the last thing I just want to flag for everyone is, this notion of how can we safely and in a way that speaks to our wellness return to campus. And I want to make sure you know that August 14th at 3 p.m. Pacific time, sorry, lots of you are in lots of places. We will have another town hall that will explicitly cover the procedures that we have placed for return to campus with a real emphasis on prioritizing the well-being of all of our students, staff, and faculty. So with that, I'm going to go around and introduce the rest of our panelists who will also give you a quick update on life from their point of view. We'll start with Zara Syed on the phone. She's not on video. She's the Assistant Director for the International Center and can give you some update that's most relevant, of course, to our international incoming students who are on the call. Thank you, Zara.
Thank you so much, Jillian. First of all, I'd like to thank, being part of this panel. I know to add to what Jillian has said, this has certainly been one of the most challenging times for our international students with, with travel bans and guidance that was kept changing and being updated, and maybe there's silence from guidance. So first of all, I have to give kudos to our new incoming students, our continuing students, to be patient, because these guidance really have affected a lot of your decisions of, coming to campus or staying home, or, safety, and a lot of things that usually in my field, you looked at immigration and academics. This past, months have just expanded that due to so many changes and health concerns, and then how immigration had provided guidance. So I want to just say most recently on July 24th, there was finally some guidance that alluded to fall school term, which was something that we were waiting to hear. It didn't give a whole lot of information for our continuing students because it rescinded back to March, the same information that was there for our continuing students who are in active status. So active F1s, they're already either here or abroad with that status. Those regulations pretty much, or guidance, stayed the same. The one point that they did mention are new initial students, perhaps that are in their home country waiting to arrive. It does talk about having at least one class or not being completely online or remote. And so as Jillian had mentioned, we are hybrid. So hopefully that is something that covers that portion of the guidance. And our office, which is the International Center, and actually is the office that issues the F1 document, the I-20, and the J1 document, we have continued to keep, we've been processing those, and with the assumption that students will try to apply for the visa and things will go in as progress, knowing that there may be delays, and we've just tried to keep that updated. And I think the best place for at least our international students are to keep in touch with our website. We've been trying to keep either guidance there, so to see what really applies to you. So one of the things we've been doing is trying to be very mindful of our website too, to see if anything is applicable to a particular student. But I just wanted to clarify that the guidance talks about continuing and initial. So some of what I'm going to answer, because I know there were preset questions, I may distinguish both. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Zara. And so with that, I'm going to turn to a pair of panelists that we have. So Tim Treven is our Executive Director for Student Housing, and Joe Harvey has been kind enough to join us, who runs one of the housing communities that is very popular with our graduate students, so they can give you a bit of an update on how things are going in housing. And Tim, I do know that we already, of course, have an inbound question about the concerns around COVID and moving to campus. So I'll just throw that out for you. I know you're already planning to talk, but.
Sounds good. Okay, so let me first talk about a question that came in prior to the town hall about whether or not students who choose to cancel their contracts for their leases and not live on campus for some or all of 2020-21 due to COVID concerns, can they get housing again, and can they retain their grad guarantee? So this, again, what I'm going to say really applies to students with a guarantee for housing. And what we have arranged as a one-time measure, because of the uncertainty of this time, is that all students, all graduate guaranteed students, can cancel their lease at no penalty up until December 30th. We'll reevaluate at that point whether it needs to be extended. And that will be at no penalty. That includes not only students who are incoming and have not yet moved in, but if you're a student who's already arrived, moved in, and decided, I'm not really sure about the risk of living in a group living situation, you're also qualified to cancel your lease as well under the same terms. The second question then becomes, what happens to my graduate guarantee? If you have a graduate guarantee, if you decide that you want to live on campus in a subsequent quarter, you will need to reapply for housing, and then you will be provided a priority placement off of the waiting list. And this is assuming that we are full at that point. And then once you're placed in housing, your guarantee will kick back in with the original terms. So one caveat I want to put is that we do anticipate that there will be quite a good handful of students who will cancel, who will want a priority placement later. We just want to be really transparent that our ability to get you into the exact unit type, community, rate structure is probably more limited, very likely more limited in a subsequent quarter than it is right now, but we will do the best we can. In terms of move-in and in terms of maintaining a environment that promotes well-being on campus, first of all, you'll be getting an email very soon on entering the housing environment with instructions about how to prepare to arrive, as well as arrival instructions. We will be, upon your arrival, we'll be doing a health screening with you, and we'll give you information to email about how we'll do that. And if you are symptom-free, then you'll have your key and you'll proceed to move in as usual. If you present with symptoms, then you'll be referred to the Student Health Center for an assessment, possible testing, and very likely you'll be moved to quarantine or isolation before moving into your unit. So that's one thing I really want to impress upon all of our incoming students. If you are symptomatic prior to arrival, don't come. Stay at home if you can. Find a friend that you can stay with off campus for however long until you're not symptomatic, because the truth is we cannot permit you to move into your permanent assignment until you are symptom-free, and we would really encourage you to just delay your arrival until you are symptom-free. However, if you have no other options, then we do have a quarantine and isolation area for you until you are symptom-free. there'll be lots more information in the email that will come out. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that you'll also be receiving an email from me in the next couple of days with a very extensive FAQ. So I think vast majority of the questions that you would ask will be included in that, but also happy to take questions as we get to the Q&A portion today. So we're excited to have you. It's going to be a different year, but it's going to be a good year. And so we're looking forward to having you on campus and serving you in student housing. So Joe, I will toss it to you for any other updates that you would want to give.
So for those of you who thought that Tim's comment about a isolation quarantined area sounds ominous, it really is not. It's just another apartment that we've set aside on the edge of our community. So it's not as scary as it sounds. We are really looking forward to having you all come and be a part of our communities. We know this is going to be a very different experience, but we really look at the challenge of how do we make your time here while you're going through your program as just as comfortable and successful as possible. So we're being very creative and how do we follow the guidance of not only your departments, but the campus and CDC on keeping you safe and everybody else safe, but making sure that you enjoy your time here and really find it rewarding, because a lot of time is really spent in your academic courses and on your studies. And so we want to make sure that your social side of that is equally actually more stress-free than your academic side. So we really want to make you feel comfortable and kind of provide you those outlets that we can. So thank you so much for being a part of us and being willing to come and live on campus with us, because we love having you here. So.
Thank you for that, Joe. And then last but not least, I'll introduce you to one more duo. Out of graduate division, we have two panelist members here today. One is Ruth Quinnen, who is our Senior Director for Academic and Student Affairs, and then Gabriella Pham, who specializes in international students. So for our international students on the call, you may have already been in touch with her, and they can tell you a little bit about what we're doing in graduate division to support our incoming students and so on. So with that, I'll hand it over to Ruth.
Okay, hi. Thanks for participating and being here today, and thanks for coming to UCI whenever you do get here. We appreciate it, and we're really looking forward to welcoming you to campus, and whether it's online instruction to begin with or whether you're on campus, we're looking forward to having you and welcoming you. I work with student affairs and academic affairs. So I get involved with a lot of student issues when students have, problems, questions, any issues. I work very closely with Tim and his staff in housing and various other offices, the registrar's office, the financial services office, the academic senate. So work with a lot of different offices and handle a lot of different things, but I would encourage anybody, if you have questions or concerns, to please contact me. I'll put my email address in the Q&A. But now feel free to contact me with any questions. I'm here to help and I'm happy to do it. So welcome to everybody, and I will turn it over to Gabriella.
Hi, everyone. Just like Jillian said, I probably connected with some of the international students who might be on this call, but hello to everyone. Just like Ruth has said, we represent the student affairs side. And for me, that means both your academic and professional development outside of your classroom. One of the biggest things that I run is the Graduate Interconnect program. Peer mentorship is a really big thing, whether you're a mentor or mentee, and the Graduate Interconnect program is actually built for incoming international students. We have a couple for our domestic students as well, including the Inclusive Excellence Ambassadors, Competitive Edge. So some of you may have already been connected to peer mentors over the course of the summer. I highly recommend that you follow their emails, connect with them, ask questions. These peer mentors are current graduate students who represent all different fields, come from all different backgrounds, and have very unique experiences of being here at UCI, and they're ready and willing to share. And during these times, which none of us could have predicted, it's nice to be able to connect with a student who's experiencing it firsthand, and can give you some insight into what to expect in your program, what's it like to be on campus. They already experienced spring quarter during COVID time, so they might have a little bit more insight on how to handle it more successfully for fall quarter. So please, I definitely encourage you to keep in communication with your peer mentors. If you have questions about any of our peer mentor programs, you can leave them in the Q&A, and I'm happy to answer them. In addition to our peer mentor programs, we also have the Graduate and Postdoctoral Resource Center. So wanted to touch base about that as well. Since you guys are going to be working remotely, doing a lot of research, taking classes, your professional development and your personal development is also really important to us. And this resource center provides you with a lot of workshops, certificate programs, anything that you might need outside of the classroom to really make sure you're an outstanding and successful graduate student. And they've really created a robust program for a fall quarter that can be done remotely. So keep an eye out for emails on how to register for these events. It's a great way to connect with students too. It's seeing that we're going to be from all different places in the world. Why not connect with someone on things that you guys want to learn together, whether it's building your resume, your CV, wanting to learn how to practice public speaking, how to be more effective on Zoom. So keep an eye out for those emails on how to register for those events for fall. And there's no cost to you. So this is all provided for you at free. So take advantage of that. And finally, the last thing on the student affairs side is graduate welcome and orientation. So I'm sure many of you are anticipating what to expect. So this is the first step as graduate welcome and orientation. So you'll be cordially invited in the coming days to our very first virtual orientation. This is a great space for you to learn about all of the resources and services on campus. It will be a hybrid program. So part of it will be a live webinar, part of it will be self-directed learning. But we recognize you guys are all in different parts of the world, so there's no expectation that you are logging in at 1 a.m. in the morning. Things will be recorded and posted on our website. But this is a really great resource for you to prepare yourself for when you can safely come to campus. You want to make sure you know where everything is and also what is accessible while you are not at campus. So happy to answer questions about all that other stuff too. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriella and Ruth, and thanks again to all of our panelists. We do have a few other, you'll see black boxes on there. Those are folks listening in. Don't worry about them. I want to answer a couple of the questions that came in live that also have gotten a lot of thumbs up upvoting. So clearly these are questions lots of people have, and then I'm going to turn some of these questions over to our panelists. So a couple of questions in here about what's going to happen with the library and what's going to happen with the research labs. And the reason I'm grouping those is because they fall sort of broadly under notions of scholarly productivity, and they fall under the Office of Research's plan for return to campus scholarly work and return to research. And that is a very elaborate phased plan with lots of checkpoints at which we may fall back or we may continue forward depending on the public health context. So where we're at right now is there is limited research in labs. Essentially, if you cannot do your research remotely, I'm a computer scientist, there's very little we can't do remotely, but recognizing that many of you do need to be in the archives or you need to be in a research lab and so on, you may come to campus under very closely watched guidance and some specific things around training and symptom checking and other kinds of pieces that we'll talk about. I'll again tease the August 14th town hall that will really focus on this return to campus policies and procedures. We hope that we will soon be in a better public health context that will allow more opening. We don't know. And what's most important about that is to know that we don't know and we can't sort of make super accurate predictions, but that we are on a week-by-week basis collecting all of the relevant public health data. We have some of the best epidemiologists and contagious disease specialists in the world working right here, and they're all actively working on this problem with us and with folks who do everything from looking at HVAC systems to how many people can be in an elevator to how do we best work out bathrooms. So every little piece is being carefully considered. We are also considering using tenting outdoors for things like study spaces or student organization spaces and things like that. One of the benefits of being here in Southern California is that we can use outdoor spaces in a way that many other campuses cannot. So that's sort of what's going on there. And we are going to continue to update you on those things as we get closer to the fall quarter and so on. So with that, I'm going to then hand this over to a question that has come up a bit about what's going to happen in terms of our I-20s and so on. And Zara, I know you kind of touched on this, but if you don't mind just sort of repeating what is happening right now in terms of reissuing I-20s for those who need them.
Sure. So I want to again break it up between continuing students, as everyone's during this time, we have continuing students that have left and have a valid I-20 with them. Those documents, if they have a signature and you don't need a visa and you're a continuing student, there's no need to update those documents. The ones that we are concentrating on right now are the students, I'm assuming, that are more in this group, the ones that are coming in. And something that the consular affairs are asking is on the document itself that it says it's not 100% remote, that we are offering some sort of in-person guideline, and that's what our office is done. For many, we have already issued some of those documents, and like I said, as things have changed, guidance from campus and overall, how we should word it has been updated, so we're working on that. So just as effective of today, we've gotten the final go ahead to start up again with that, and we will prioritize those that have visas, because of course what we were saying is the new students, it's a consular issue. So when you go to apply for a visa, they're asking for that documentation or that confidence that when you're coming to UCI, what is the remote teaching? Is it remote? Are you completely online? Is it a hybrid? And Jillian already addressed that we're a hybrid campus. And so we will put that on the document itself. So if you can reach out to your department, if you have a visa appointment coming up, let's say I have a student who's coming tomorrow, and we're working on trying to prioritize that. And the other issue with that is having that student, because we're doing it electronically, it will be done very quickly. So there's not the mailing issue that we had earlier on with documents. So that's for our new and continuing.
And in terms of the in-person courses, I just want to add to that because I did see a question about it. Our campus standard is that if a course is listed as TBA for location, that means we are announcing the physical location at a later date. It does mean it's in person. If it is an online course, it is either listed as online or virtual remote. And so please know, I know there's a little bit of confusion about in the schedule of classes, people are worried that TBA means it might go online, but TBA means it is planned to be an in-person course. Now, certainly if we reach a point where the governor of the state of California shuts down all in-person activities under a stay-at-home order, we will respect that. But TBA means that we plan for it to be in person. It just doesn't have a physical classroom assigned to it, or it may be using something that we call an unassignable space. So like if I'm meeting with a student in my office or in my backyard, which might be the more appropriate thing given our current public health context, that would also get a TBA. So I just want to make sure that everyone is aware what that means when you look in the schedule of classes. Gabriella, if I could send it over to you, we've got a question about graduate orientation. So if you could just tell them a little bit more about it, that would be great. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I was actually typing my answer to her, but I'm happy to share it with everyone else too. So there is actually going to be no in-person orientation. It's still going to be on Friday, September 25th. What is going to happen is that you will be receiving a invitation via email. So the email address you're going to be checking is the email address that you use to apply to UCI. So hopefully, usually it's a personal email address or old university address. It is not your UCI address. It's the one that you use to apply to UCI. You'll register for orientation there, and you'll get a Zoom invitation link as it gets closer to the date. It is a hybrid format, so that means we're going to have some presenters and speakers on a webinar that will be recorded, and we'll be posting that online as well. In addition, you will have access to Canvas. I'm not sure, it might be called Blackboard at other universities, but it's an online environment where you can access course materials. We actually created orientation as a quote course. You won't be graded for it, don't worry, there's no quizzes or anything, but lots of information from different resources. There'll be presentations as well as some videos that you can go through at your own pace. And you'll also have access to it for the rest of your time while you're here at UCI. Canvas is the online environment that you'll be using, and this is something you should get familiar with anyways, because many of your online courses will have the materials posted. Your faculty members will also be posting in Canvas as well.
Thank you so much, Gabriella. We also have a couple of questions about, can we do all of our classes remotely? And what about if I'm concerned about a class that I have to take that is listed as in person? So please reach out to the individual program chairs, student affairs officers, and so on. In some cases, we already know who that is. So Ruth has gone in and typed the email address you should use to get more details about individual courses. But I do want to generally tell you that the campus has as a principle that you do not have to attend a course in person if you are unable for any reason. And so your reason that you may be unable, we're not going to drill down and ask you a bunch of private detailed questions about what is your particular health risk, why won't you come in, things like that. We've decided as a campus to privilege your well-being and your privacy over those kinds of invasive questions. So I want to make sure you know that. Certainly if a course is being offered in person, there's a reason for that, and the faculty member believes that some portion of that is really valuable to be had in person. So I would encourage you to reach out to them and kind of learn and understand about it. But we have asked all faculty to prepare remote options for students who are unable to attend for whatever reason. So just know that that's the case. But again, work closely with your individual programs about those kinds of details. Ruth, could you talk a little bit about the deferral option? So I'm going to start with just one thing that I think is really important to know. If there happen to be any undergrads on this call, this is a grad focused call, but I want to make sure that if there are incoming undergrads on this call, you know that your deferment options and approaches are quite different. So you need to go directly through the University of California and request to defer your enrollment there directly. At the graduate level, the requests go to individual programs first, and then those programs decide about coming to graduate division. So some programs may not be offering to students to defer, and I just want to make that really clear before we walk through the actual process. So with that, I'm going to hand it to Ruth to talk about the process.
Okay, so if a student has requested a deferral and the program has allowed it, has approved it, they let our office know that the student wishes to defer. Most students are and most programs are deferring students to the following fall. Part of this is because a lot of courses are sequential, so starting in the middle of the year doesn't work. And for a host of logistical reasons. In any event, if the program has approved you to defer, we will defer your application until the following fall. And for a deferral, the letters of recommendation will follow the new, the deferred application, as will the academic history and transcripts. You don't have to resubmit any of those things. So it shouldn't be an onerous process for a student, but if you have any questions or you feel like you're not sure what's going on, please do email me and we will find out for you.
Thank you for that. We've also got a question about residency requirements. And this is a bit tricky. I don't have a great answer for this. And hopefully if anyone else on the panel knows better than I do, they may be able to answer. In the spring and summer, the regents at the University of California determined that essentially if you were displaced by COVID and therefore were not able to establish residency, but you might otherwise have. So for example, you could not get to the DMV, but otherwise would have been able to, or you could not, or you had to move out of state, otherwise had planned to be here, then we are able to treat you as a California resident for tuition purposes. And as soon as you are able, you would still need to establish residency. The problem with the reason I'm hedging a little bit is we do not have guidance for fall quarter yet that I know of. Okay, good. Ruth is shaking her head. Yes.
Yeah. No, we have not heard any further updates from the regents on this issue as yet. And we do have to follow the guidance of the University of California regents.
So that is the best information we have, and we'll continue to get you additional information as we can. And yeah. Any other questions? So we've got one in here that I'll answer in a moment, but you're actually a relatively quiet group compared to some of our previous town halls. So please keep throwing your questions in there. We would really like to see them. So we've got a question about, do we think limited access to research labs will delay dissertation defenses? Inevitably, some students will experience disruptions to their research, and we've already seen that. We've also, at the other end of things, seen students whose research has sped up. If you, for example, working on antiviral medication right now, you have extra funding and extra time and extra access to human subjects and all the rest, right? So it's a highly variable experience from what we can see. And so we're looking very closely. I know the individual programs are also looking at this very closely, and faculty advisors are looking at it very closely and trying to help students in some cases reframe research questions and research projects, change their approaches, use different methods, because we don't know when we're going to be able to do some of the things that we're used to doing. Access to research labs is certainly a big one. Probably even bigger is things like international travel. That's really unclear when sort of free flow of travel will be possible again. And so everyone is scrambling to just really help our students to get their projects in a place that they can best handle all of these things. So let's see, other questions, and thank you. Now they're all pouring in, which is wonderful. So Zara, I'm gonna hand over to you. Incoming international students who cannot travel to the US because of travel restrictions, would we be allowed to enroll in the courses remotely from our home country?
Thank you. So that has a two-part answer. If you are going to be enrolled remotely and just as a student, that would be the academic side. But if you're a new student and need to have the F1, we would need to defer until a time that you're actually able to come in person with an initial record, activate that, and be able to have you come in and have the F1 status. So working and, I mean, being a student is one thing, but actually coming in will be active once we are able to have you come in and at least have one class in person. And this is again for an initial new student. So I do want to clarify that. So our continuing students, you know, remote is fine. But initial students, we do want to make sure that that's the latest guidance, and that's what we need to abide by. So certainly, if you're not able to come, and I know this has been said by other panelists, is, you know, your health and wellness is the first thing. Please work with our office. We will try to defer it so that when you are able and willing, we will work with that to get the document to you.
And Sarah, well, I've got you off mute. We have another question for you is, who should they email if they have a visa interview upcoming and they need that new I-20? What's the best place for them to start?
I would say their academic department, their admitting department. We have tried to work out in our office so that department can email us, and we have a sort of a grid of how soon we're doing these documents, because remember, we're seeing hundreds of students like this, and we certainly want to, you know, be mindful of your visa appointment and not miss an email. And so that was the best way we worked out, and all the departments have already received that message and that plan from our office, is if they can be the ones to convey that message to us. And they just, so every week we try to update whoever's coming in that week and redoing, or for some of them, issuing the first I-20 with that new guidance of, you know, that the classes are not all remote.
Thank you. We've got a couple questions in here about funding. And I said this at the very beginning, but I think the calls were still loading in, so some of you may have missed it, and it's really worth repeating. So I want to be really clear about this. If you have a funding package as a PhD student, it will be honored if you can enroll in our university at all, whether it's remote or here. And I want to say that again, because I can't be more clear about that. If you are able to enroll in our university, either remote or in person, and we recognize there are some who are not going to be able to for various reasons, but if you are able to enroll, your funding package will be honored. And if you are getting any pressure from a faculty advisor or from someone in the schools that they don't want to pay you because you're going to be remote in the fall, or that they are trying to make you defer when you really want to start remote in the fall, you should come to us in Graduate Division and we will support you. We feel very strongly that if you want to come to our university in the fall, whether it's remote or in person, and you are able to do so, now, again, granted that some of you will not be able to enroll either remotely or in person, and those are some unique situations we need to deal with. But if you are able, and that is your preference, your funding will be honored. And we stand by that. That is the university's position. So please do let us know if you're having any trouble with that. That said, there's a lot of confusion. So I will not take any sort of messaging you may be getting that's just a result of pure confusion as malice or intentional pressure, any of those things. So we are providing some additional guidance that is set to go out hopefully today, tomorrow morning at the worst, about how the schools actually go about entering you into our employment systems if you don't have a social security number and things like that, because it's not trivial and it's not something our staff are used to doing. So please bear with us as we work that out, and maybe give them until Friday so that they can digest what's coming. But absolutely, those of you who have tuition and stipend guarantees in your offer letters, please know that those stay with you. There is an additional question about tuition from someone who I'm assuming is not in sort of the funded bucket of PhD students and so on, with the additional financial strain and so on. Please reach out to financial aid with those issues. They are able to reevaluate packages and do additional loans and other kinds of things depending on what your family situation is and what your financial situation is. The University of California system-wide has made a declaration that they will not change tuition during this time. They did not raise it, which we were actually expecting to raise it, but they're not gonna lower it either. This is where I'll throw in one more little thing as someone who ran an online program for years. People often have a misperception that online is somehow cheaper. It's actually 10 to 20% more expensive to deliver online education. So on the bonus side, we're not charging you 10 to 20% more. So, I know it's tough right now, but please do reach out to financial aid, and they really want to work with our students and help out as best we can. So Ruth, if I could call upon you, we have a question about the requirements to be a TA. This is a specific question about, do they have to enroll in person to be a TA? But I'm wondering if you could just speak quickly a little bit more broadly about the requirements of being a TA.
So for example, if one is an international student, there is an English proficiency requirement to be a TA. There's also TA training that's mandatory that will be online. But yeah, you do have to attend it. In-person attendance is not necessarily mandatory. It really depends Since most of our undergraduate classes, if not all of them, will be remote, particularly for fall quarter, the TA duties will also be carried out remotely as well. So no, you don't have to be in person in order to perform your TA duties. But you do have to attend the remote online mandatory training. And if you, have to demonstrate English proficiency, hopefully you would have already taken a TOEFL, for example, or the IELTS. And we will also have campus-based tests for those who were not able to take the English proficiency tests. So we will be sending out information about that. So I hope that helps. I hope that answers the question. I can address the deferring admission question again, if you'd like. So if you have requested from your program that you be able to defer until next fall, and the program has agreed to allow that, then they let us know, we defer the application. You don't have to reapply. You don't have to send any additional materials. You are just then put into, you have been admitted for the following fall.
Yes, so for if you are not able to defer for whatever reason, either your program is not offering it or for some other reason, if you do reapply, everything pulls over except for letters of recommendation. And you do have to, register to reapply again and sort of hit that submit button. If it's a true deferral, then there's really nothing you have to do. We handle it on the back end.
Except that you will have to file another positive SIR next year.
Yes, thank you.
Just to let us know that you do intend to come.
Great. Ruth, while I've got you off mute, if you could also answer where and how they sign up for TapDap.
That's a darn good question. Let me see if I can find out right now, and I'll type the answer in or I'll say it. Let me find out.
We will find out the answer to that. Great question about having an in-person class and an online class right next to each other with 10-minute break in between. I had not thought about that case. So thank you, Stephanie, for asking us that question. I will say to you all, if multiple people have that, please reach out to your individual grad program chairs and see if they have any recommendations or a faculty office or something that you could take to pop in for that online class that would be, sort of appropriate with our campus social distancing rules and all the rest. I am going to also ask that question of our group because I'll be honest, I've been in a lot of meetings and I don't think anyone has thought of that specific scenario. So thank you so much for asking that question, and we will find out the answer as quickly as we can. So we are now about 10 minutes from our scheduled end of this. And we have one last question that just popped in that I'm going to pass over to Tim, which is a sort of late SIR, wants to know if on-campus housing is still a possibility. And you are on mute.
Yeah, thank you. So the best answer to that is please contact the housing office at 949-824. I'm looking for the number 6811, and we'll talk to you about your circumstance. So yeah, we'll be
949-824. What were the last four again?
6811.
6811. 949-824-6811. I know we've got people listening on the phone, so I'm doing my good. Keep repeating it radio voice for you so you can get that phone number down. That goes for other housing related questions as well. I'm just going to tell you, International Center Housing, everyone that you want to talk to is unbelievably backlogged, but they also really want to help you and talk to you. So please don't let the fact that you might have sent an email in and they weren't able to get back to you quickly stop you. If you've got an urgent question, call or email again, and they will really do their best to help you. I know they are a really dedicated set of people in both of those offices trying everything they can to get you here. All right. So other questions that people have generally about grad admissions, things like degree certifications, updated transcripts, and so on. please send those to the graduate division office. There's lots of individual detailed email addresses, and Ruth put hers into the chat transcript. For those of you maybe watching this on Facebook or listening on the phone, the easiest one to always remember is just grad@uci.edu, which is grad@uci.edu. That will always get to someone, and then they will route it in the right place. And so don't be shy with those kinds of questions. We do have people going into the office. They are receiving FedExed transcripts and all the rest of it. We've moved as much online as we can, but we know that there are still things like that. So please don't be shy. If you've got those kinds of questions, just email them in and we'll do our best to get back to you. So with just a few minutes left on this call, I want to turn it back to the panelists for a moment for any closing thoughts they may have had. They've all done a really great job of answering your questions, both in texting and by voice. But if there's anything else that you all want to add to welcome our students, or any advice or anything. So Gabriella, I'll start with you. You're in the right on my Zoom.
Yeah, I actually just wanted to see if you saw a question that actually showed up in our chat. It's an international student asking about the health insurance and waiving. So I was hoping maybe anyone else on the panel had some information or advice on that. I know the health center is constantly updating their website. There's a lot of information. I recognize our American healthcare system is quite complicated, so I don't expect an international student to quite understand. But if you have any information that we could share with the student or anyone else.
Yeah, great question. Ruth, do you want to share what's been happening in the student health task forces and so on?
Well, let's see. The Student Health Center has some guidance that they will be sending out to students. They still are, they still have immunization requirements, and those will be going out, as well as any kind of COVID protocols or testing and things like that. The Student Health Center should be sending that out, I believe, in the next few days. However, I will say that any student, for example, an international student who is unable to get here due to visa restrictions, travel restrictions, and so forth, if you have health insurance in your home country or whatever country you happen to be residing in, I would strongly encourage you to waive out of the Graduate Student Health Insurance Program, or GSHIP, which is the acronym for that. You do have to demonstrate that you have equivalent or better insurance, and there is a process for doing that. Let me put in the Student Health Center website. Hang on just a moment. I'll type the Student Health Center website in.
Yeah, that waiver is online.
All right.
The
Yes,
waiver is online. So Ruth's going to type that into the website for you all, or into the Q&A section for you all in a moment. Health insurance in America is extraordinarily expensive. I don't know much else I can say about that other than the US citizens who are on the call, please vote. We do have a couple questions that seem to have come in from Facebook about things like spring admissions and so on. We don't have any plans right now for any what we would call off-cycle admissions. That could change. I've learned that in the land of COVID, you never say never, but we don't at this moment have any plans for off-cycle admissions. So over to Tim and Joe, anything final you want to say about joining us in housing?
The only other thing I was going to add is that in addition to calling us, you're also welcome to email us questions at housing@uci.edu, housing@uci.edu. And we know this is just a very complex time and that you'll have many individual questions, so please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you. And Sarah, over to you. Any last words for our wonderful incoming international students?
just that we're very looking forward to seeing all of you, and hopefully your process of getting the visa. I always say half the battle is that and to actually get here. We wish you luck with that. I did want to just give a little information about our office. We actually are still not, we're all working remotely, so please do not mail anything to our office. We have created an upload tool on our website that any documents, you can either email it to me or to that upload tool preferably, but mailing to our office becomes very problematic because we are in an office that we haven't been allowed to come back. So that's one thing I do want to mention, and email is probably the best way to reach us, and we have been delayed with that. I get, I see that, but please do send another message if you find that it was urgent and you didn't send it to me or to our director or someone. We will try to address it as quick as we can, and especially the urgent ones, we do want to try to answer that. And of course, those that are not urgent too, we know all of your questions are important. So I just wanted to give that little update, and thank you again for having me on this panel.
Thank you, Sarah. So again, I'll just end with a little teaser for August 14th to join us to hear about our plans and policies and procedures for returning to campus and how we're going to ramp up to that final stage where we all get to be back together again, which of course is what everyone hopes for. I just will close for a moment with saying, I was living abroad when I applied for graduate school and then moved back here to the US. And I remember the stress of that. And I was a US citizen and it was not a pandemic. So I want to just really let all of you know how much we are here for you. And I know it doesn't always feel that way. We are bogged down and we are late in responding, and we don't always have the answers, and we don't always have the answers you want. But I do want to make sure you know that everyone on this call and everyone who works in our various organizations so much want you to be successful in your study here at UCI. And we are so glad that you chose to study with us. So we will all look back on this one day and hopefully think of it as a time that we learned a lot and we grew a lot, but the pain is real and we know that. So please be excited about your graduate education, even if it's not starting the way that you had hoped. So welcome everyone again to UCI, and we look forward to seeing you when we can.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.